and welcome to I'm Your Biggest Fan, the podcast that chats to your favourite artists about their favourite artists. I'm your host, Jazmin L'Amy, in conjunction with the Noizze Podcast Network and sponsored by Satanic Tico. Today, I am talking with vocalist for the grunge metal band Cages for Preachers. What a band name that is. What does that even mean? They're based out of Manchester, and with a handful of singles to their name, I'm chatting with vocalist Doyle, who is fanboying about his love of Alter Bridge and Myles Kennedy. This was an interesting episode for many reasons. Firstly, we debate whether it was him or his guitarist Josh that caught Mark Tremonti's guitar pick when they went to go see the band together. Opinions on Kennedy and Tremonti's solo endeavours, the difference between Creed and Alter Bridge, the insane vocal techniques of Myles Kennedy and how Kai implements that in his own music writing and performance. Of course, the all-important band merch and the t-shirts he got from his first and only time seeing the band live. But not only that, this is also the first podcast recording I've done since getting a new kitten last week. So the beginning of this episode was a little bit chaotic, but my new kitten, Toothless, did a very good job at being very quiet and behaving himself. So without further ado, here's the next episode. Enjoy. I'm not sure how much you've been told about this interview, but the whole premise of this podcast is, so it's called I'm Your Biggest Fan, and I work in the music industry full-time as well, and I find that a lot of interviews with every album cycle, with every tour cycle, new single, a lot of the questions can get a bit monotonous, and it's the same kind of stuff every time, and I feel like as a musician, it's got the potential to kind of take away that like spark you feel about music sometimes, and especially with the advent of social media, it's so easy for fans to gain access to the bands they like now that they forget that their favorite bands are also just fans of music. So this is an opportunity for you to talk about your favorite band for the next 45 minutes.
Hell yeah.
And the band I've been told you want to talk about today is Alter Bridge.
Hell yeah.
Which I'm really excited about because I have seen Alter Bridge twice now. I've seen Myles Kennedy a couple of times too.
Hell yeah.
So the first question is, let's take it right back. I'm imagining you got into them in your like childhood years. Do you remember the first time you heard Alter Bridge?
I remember hearing my dad and my brothers watched a lot of WWE, so I remember hearing Metalingus when the Edge was walking out. I was none the wiser. I just thought it was cool. But then as I've got older, I've started hearing more and more of it in different places, and I was a massive Guns N' Roses fan when I was starting to learn guitar, and naturally you learn about Slash and Myles Kennedy, and from Myles Kennedy you go to Alter Bridge, and went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I feel like you had a very similar journey to me because Guns N' Roses is my favorite band, and I've got it tattooed on my arm. I did the same thing, like when Slash went solo and he did his stuff with Myles Kennedy. I discovered Alter Bridge after that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said there that the first song you heard was Metalingus from WWE, and when you first heard it, you were none the wiser. So at what point did it finally click in your brain that you really liked that sound?
I was really late to the party on it. So our guitarist Josh, he's a big wrestling fan as well, and he was really into it from that. And he kept telling me for ages that I'd really like it. He was like, it's the right amount of, because it took me a really long time to get into heavy music. I much preferred like softer melodic music. And as I'd started to get into, listening to music that was a bit heavier, he kept telling me that I'd really like this band, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure I will, yeah. And I never did it, and I think he actually posted a cover of one of the songs, and I was like, that's a really fucking cool guitar part. So then I listened to that, And I was like, that's cool. I'm going to try and cover it. So then I tried to sing it, and that was when it all went tits up because he's not an easy guy to try and replicate. So then it was more an obsession with trying to be able to do it.
Right. Okay.
And then just kind of along the way, I've kind of learned everything about them.
Oh, nice. So it was like an accidental love affair.
Yeah, exactly that. You've got, if you're not Miles Kennedy, you're not good enough yet. That's where I'm at.
So you got into Alter Bridge out of spite and sheer determination.
Yeah, mostly spite. Mostly spite.
So you said there that you were into a lot softer, more melodic music before Alter Bridge. What were you listening to before
that? Jeff Buckley. Lots of Jeff Buckley.
Okay.
Really like Jeff Buckley, Nina Simone, The Smiths, The Cure. Sorry, pardon me. Yeah, Stevie Wonder. Just like a lot of, just like nothing that relates in the slightest to anything that we do.
Yeah,
that would make sense for us to. But I mean, even to this day, like there's a huge Jeff Buckley poster. I'd like Jeff Buckley is another one that I could talk forever about. I think that's probably part of the reason that I got on with Alter Bridge so well, because it's just Jeff Buckley with heavy guitars. It's that same floaty, higher octave stuff. Yeah.
So when you eventually started getting into Alter Bridge, what was it about them besides Miles Kennedy's challenging vocals? What was it about them that stood out against all the other stuff you were listening to beforehand? Like, what was their unique selling point for you that was the clincher for them being your favorite band?
There's a lot of really, really interesting melodic choices happening. Like some of the ways that the guitar parts and the vocal parts interact are really, really interesting, because there'll be times where, and I'm trying to think of an example here, but it slipped me, where the guitar part will go one way and the vocal part will go the other, and then they'll meet in the middle. And it's really, really well written music with really interesting interval choices.
Yeah.
But they still manage to keep it catchy and not sound off-putting. Because I like music that's technical, and I like it to be complex and keep me interested. As a musician, it's really hard to listen to music and not try and pick it apart.
Yeah, of course.
But it's so well written. It's so well written without sounding like it's, a Sugar or Tool, and it's like being complex to be complex.
Yeah,
I really, really like how it still feels like the song's being served, even if they are in some stupid time signature or there is some stupid note choice.
Yeah, of course. One of the things I really liked about Alter Bridge is that Mark Tremonti's riffs are so heavy. Because I had exactly the same thing as you. It took me so long to get into heavy music. Like anything that had remotely screamy vocals on it, it wasn't until embarrassingly recently that it finally clicked and made sense.
It was 2019 for me, 2018, 2019.
Mine was 2020, lockdown.
Yeah.
But the thing that I liked about Alter Bridge when I first started getting into them is Mark Tremonti's riffs, and the music is so fucking heavy and it's dark. But Miles Kennedy's voice is so pretty. Yeah, it's like
pretty and nice.
It's a really nice juxtaposition.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm obsessed with juxtapositions and like oxymorons and stuff, and like the whole balance of like light and dark and like good versus evil kind of stuff. And you get that with their music, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. That's like a massive selling point for it. It was a good gateway to me. It was like a good gateway for me to heavy music, even though it's not that heavy. And compared to some of the shit I listen to now, it's like really it feels like pop music, but it's a really, really good gateway because it's got all the elements of the softer music I like. And the producer's called Elvis. The producer does a really, really good job of making it sound so crisp that you sometimes, I think it's why it's so accessible. I mean, it's metal that's accessible. It's because it's produced so well and the vocal takes are so clean and there's such a catchy melody. You often forget that this guy's playing in drop A, and it's slow and it's breakdowny and it's riffy, and it's a really, really good gateway to heavy music.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You mentioned that the first song you heard was Metalingus, and I find personally that my favorite songs from bands tend to always remain the first song I heard because it holds that sentimental and nostalgic weight to it. So for you, is Metalingus your favorite song, or as you discovered them, has another track become your favorite?
I knew this was going to be a question as well. And I, oh,
It's a tough question.
I don't know, man. So for me, the first five Alter Bridge albums don't have one bad song on them.
I agree with that.
The only album that I've ever really there's only been like 2 songs that I've not liked on it by them has been Walk the Sky. Like even Pawns and Kings I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
But God, no, I would say there's a song on AB3 called Coeur d'Alene I really like. It's got a really big chorus. And aside from that, they had a B-side from AB3 as well called Never Born to Follow, and the bass sound on it's really, really cool.
Okay.
So one of those 2.
And you said that the first 5 albums don't have a single bad song on it. No. So there's a tough choice to choose one of your favorite songs from those albums then. So why is it those 2 that stand out the most to you, besides just the big chorus and the bass line? Because a lot of their songs have phenomenal choruses on them.
I really don't know. I think a lot of it is to do with vocals, but not even just like listening to it and being like that's an impressive vocals, because there's more impressive vocals on that album. But I don't know, I sing a lot of their songs a lot of the time, and if I find something fun to sing, I'll listen to it more, and then maybe it's the routine of listening to it more, or I really don't know. I think, like I said earlier, the melodic choices in some of the songs, and especially with Miles Kennedy, the way that he can have a melody that really doesn't jump around that much, feel like it jumps around through changing from chest voice to head voice, through like floating through different resonances. It's unbelievable. And I think AB3, that record is where he kind of really came into his own on this whole. He has right. I'm going to get really nerdy now. Okay,
that's fine. That's what we like.
I watched an interview with Miles Kennedy a few years ago, where he was talking about his vocal technique, and he's basically doing a play on an old Italian opera technique called bel canto, which translates to effortless singing, beautiful singing, something like that.
Okay.
And the idea is it's to do with vowel shaping and modifying the sound of your vowels so that when you go high, you're not straining and it really doesn't sound like you're pushing that much.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when he's going high, it looks so effortless. And even now in his mid-50s, he can still just get up there like it's no one's business.
Yeah.
And I think in AB3, he really started. I know he started taking vocal lessons just around the time of the first album tour. And obviously now at AB3, they're like 4, 5, 6 years later, and he's still been going to lessons. And I think it's the vocal coach is the same guy, the vocal coach Chris Cornell. So the guy knows what he's on with.
Yeah.
But you can really hear the way that he's enunciating things is changing. And it's got into that signature. I mean, this is the thing that some people don't like about Alter Bridge, how whiny it's become.
Right.
You know, how wide and big the vowels are. But I just think that it's allowed him to do so much more in the top end of his range. It's just, as a vocalist, it just tickles me. It's nice.
Yeah, I was a fan of Alter Bridge before this interview anyway, and thankfully I've heard all of their albums already, so I didn't have to cram in 7 albums of discography before this interview. But you can hear that. I think what you're also trying to say is that like by AB3 he'd found his voice, because you can hear like from the first couple of albums it's a lot deeper, and it's a lot more in line with like the music behind it. And by AB3 they'd found, well, as a band as a whole, they'd found that balance between, you know, the dark deep music and then these like bright soaring vocals.
And I think it made the soaring bits, because he still had access to that lower range and he still used it a lot. I think maybe it's an age thing as well. You know, as his voice matured, he kind of sat a bit better in that higher range. He still used the low range, and he was going between them much better.
Hmm.
So I think it made the big bits sound bigger, and it made those softer, darker bits sound that bit more ambient. And like you're talking about juxtaposition earlier. I think it's just like songwriting for flow. The more that he can do with his voice, the more access to different kind of moods and emotions that you can put out. And I think
Yeah.
that just on by the, I mean, he did that on Blackbird. Blackbird's one of the best records of all time, but by the time he got to AB3, I just think he perfected it.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned slightly earlier there that you tend to sing along to a couple of Osbridge songs. I've seen that you have covered a couple of their songs with
Yeah.
your band Cages for Preachers as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, do you ever get nervous playing your favorite band's songs? Like,
All
how
the time.
has how's
All
that
the
journey
time.
been like? Singing them
Um,
when you were younger and getting to perform them now, especially as like with Miles Kennedy's vocal technique is quite
Daunting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I'm trying to remember the first time we covered an Alter Bridge song. I mean, a lot of the bands that I like are really ambitious bands to try and cover. Um, I remember the first time we covered Alter Bridge, I think was what would have been like still probably our biggest headline we ever did, which is even more terrifying. You've got 300 people rammed into a little 150 cap room, and you are going out there trying to sing Miles Kennedy 7 songs into a set. Um, but we did. I think it was White Knuckles from Blackbird,
Okay, yeah.
which is even just like instrumentally is a really difficult song. I mean, the main riff's in 6/4, and the vocals are high, and it's fast, and it's complex. But I remember just being so scared of doing it and like getting to it because I think it's one thing fucking up your own song, fucking
Mm,
up a song that you really like. It doesn't feel right. It
it's
feels horrible. But we got
it's
through it.
it's easier to fuck up your own as well because no one else knows. Whereas if
Exactly,
you fuck up a
exactly.
song that already exists and people already know it, they know where you went wrong.
No, but it was a good reaction to it, and we actually did a decent job of it, and we played White Knuckles for a good couple of months in the set. We have like a good selection of covers that we just rotate between, and we just add more in when as and when.
Hmm.
But we moved to doing Find the Real, which is the opening track from the first album, um, at some point last year. And Find the Real, we found is suits our set much better,
Okay, yeah.
and it's a bit. I wouldn't even say it's easier to sing. There's a harder bit at the end when he just doesn't stop, but um, it's much slower. It kind of doesn't bounce around as much. So for the sake of consistency, it's
Yeah.
it's a much easier song to put anywhere in the set because even with fatigue, it's much more consistent. But
If
yeah, it's
you
been,
if you could cover any Alter Bridge song, even if like you don't think you could nail it, which song would you love to be able to cover and nail?
probably there's between two. I think we do a really really good job of Still Remains from AB3. Just
Tune.
it's a really similar style kind of vibe instrumentally to something we do. So I think we do a really good job of that. Or the other side from The Last Hero would be really cool as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a yeah,
Because it's just
good choice.
heavy.
And we love heavy.
Heavy shit. Heavy as shit.
You mentioned there that you were kind of introduced to Alter Bridge from one of your bandmates watching
Yeah.
WWE. And obviously, as a band, you cover their songs. So I'm assuming the rest of your bandmates share that same passion and respect for Alter Bridge.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What is everyone else into?
Ah man, there's a lot. So Frank, our drummer's really really into like his classic rock. I mean, he spent the first like 5 years of me knowing him trying to be John Bonham. Like he was just played a big ass kick drum, tried to do everything with one foot.
Right.
It was, and I think we all were kind of I've known Frank the longest in the band, and we kind of went on a journey together, getting into heavier music. We kind of got into everything at a similar time.
Okay.
Whereas Josh and James, they've just always been like absolute metalheads. I remember Josh trying to show me like Whitechapel and Infinite Annihilator when I was 14, and I was just like, this is not
Too soon, mate. Too soon.
This is not it for me. But now Whitechapel is one of my favorite bands. But yeah, the James is really into like technical deathcore stuff. James is an unbelievable guitarist, even though he's our bassist. We really should swap roles. He's an unbelievable guitarist. He's really into his like technical deathcore, like Vitriol, A Job for a Cowboy.
Yeah.
He's also into like thrash metal, and he's into like lots of weird little subgenres of death metal.
There's always one.
Hopefully he's not watched this far into it to hear me slaying him. And Josh is into a lot of things. He's really into his punk. His favorite guitarist is Mark Tremonti. Me and Josh really have a big passion for Alter Bridge, but yeah, it's really eclectic. But Alter Bridge is kind of the light at the top of it all.
Yeah, like the umbrella band, and then
we were described once in some magazine a few years ago as Alter Bridge from Wish, and I thought that was sick.
Alter Bridge from Wish. Oh, that's amazing.
That was fantastic. I loved that. Like Diet Alter Bridge. Yes,
that's what Alter Bridge light.
You're gonna put us in the same sentence as them. I'm a happy boy. Diet or not.
Yeah. So Cages for Preachers have toured tirelessly across the country and have a handful of singles on streaming platforms right now. How has your love for Alter Bridge influenced your own music writing? First, when you started writing, and now that you're further into your musical journey?
That's a really good question. I think it definitely affected it more at the beginning. A lot of the songs that are on our album that's coming up were written 5 or 6 years ago, like when we were genuinely children. And it's really, really easy to try and imitate before you found, where you are and what your own like understanding of, what you should sound like is. So there's a lot of guitar parts are written in a very similar way, whether it be not that they sound the same, but it just like in the way that the chords move, maybe the progression's similar, and then like maybe I've done a lower verse into the higher chorus, and then there's some ambient. They're layered, they're put together. Jesus, they're put together in a very similar way. But as we've kind of progressed, it's kind of it's taken on its own adaptation of that, and I really, really have to force myself now. Whenever we're like writing or recording, I can't listen to Alter Bridge.
Yeah,
just because I think I did this to myself completely. I think it became so embedded in me, thinking, what would Miles Kennedy do with this instrumental?
Yeah.
That now, if I really, and Josh already writes similar enough sounding guitar parts to Mark Tremonti. If we were both on that same wavelength, we would just be a tribute act.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard line to cross. I mean, I think we're much better at it now, but when you're 15 and your favorite band's Alter Bridge, and the two people responsible for the writing are just going, I'm going to write like this.
Yeah.
You're bound to cross over. But I think, yeah, just it's trying to find a right balance of taking inspiration without taking the piss.
Yeah, of course. So you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also play guitar as well.
Yeah.
So obviously Miles Kennedy being such a huge vocal influence on you, is Mark Tremonti also a huge guitar influence on you, or do you kind of take your music influence elsewhere?
I wish I could say he was. I wish I was good enough on guitar to really have a big guitar influence. I really wanted to be good on guitar. I really did. But I started singing and I kind of threw it out the window. But no, like I would say so. I mean, I'm nowhere near as good or as even like I don't really understand guitar to the level that I should. I was a guitar player before I was a singer, and I only really started singing properly like 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's a lot of different. I was really into the Smiths, so like a lot of my guitar playing style. I mean, at least at the time, and I don't really have much use for little jangly pop parts anymore. But
creating a new genre.
Create a new genre. The Smiths core. It's the Smiths with breakdowns. No, yeah, I think it's just a really good question. I think I take a lot. I'm just like the meat and potatoes of the band. So like I think I'm just there to make what Josh is doing sound bigger
Yeah.
and make it easy for me to sing over. So I really like the rhythm parts in Gojira.
Okay.
Really,
Yeah.
really simple, just chuggy stuff. But yeah, and I really wish I had an interesting answer for guitars, but I'd drawing blanks.
That's absolutely fine. So you discovered Alter Bridge first. Did you then go back and do a bit of research and listening on Creed?
Yeah, I did. I've never been massively into Creed, but I do have a bit of a guilty pleasure for them. I do think they're really cool.
I think everyone who likes Creed is more of a guilty pleasure, from what I've heard.
Yeah. I don't
Which
know.
is,
I feel like it's becoming less taboo. It's like Nickelback,
yeah,
in it. It's like it's not so bad to admit you like Nickelback now, which
I
is good, man. Which is
fucking
good.
love Nickelback.
I'm here for that. I'm here for Nickelback's revival.
Fuck yeah. But it's quite interesting that people are so divided between Creed and Alter Bridge because the only difference is the vocalist. And
But Miles Kennedy is the hell of a vocalist.
he is, but it's insane how much of a difference that seems to make. I think for me, so I was the same. I was Alter Bridge first, and then I tried to listen to Creed, and it didn't quite hit the same. And I think what it is a Creed vocalist had a much more of a grunge vocal tinge, and
Definitely.
it took me so long to get into grunge. Like one of the things
Really?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a massive grunge fan.
I started on like 80s glam rock,
okay.
and obviously grunge killed glam. So
Oh, okay. So there's a bit of a vendetta there.
yeah, literally that. And the first two grunge bands I was introduced to was Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and
Okay.
neither of them did it for me.
See, I was always Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. We came in on different ends. I think if you'd have started there, you would have been fine.
And then I got into Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and I was like, oh, okay.
I get it now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Pearl Jam and Nirvana start to make sense after the fact.
A little bit, but my ex's favorite band was Pearl Jam, so that I'll always have a vendetta against them.
Well.
But I think as well what it is like that typical grunge vocal tinge.
Yeah.
Isn't really for me.
All that.
Yeah, it's not for me. So I think with Creed, and vocals for me are really important as well, because when I was growing up, I wouldn't call myself a musician, but I definitely used to do some vocals and guitar, and vocals for me are really important. So like the vocalist can make or break a band for me. Definitely. And unfortunately, they broke Creed. And Alter Bridge is where the sweet spot was.
I think as well. I mean, if you were to look at it on paper, you could say that the only difference is the vocals, but I don't completely agree with that. I think maybe for the first Alter Bridge album was full of instrumentals that I assume were probably written during the Creed time.
I think they were. I read that.
I mean, even at this point, Miles Kennedy wasn't playing guitar, so he wouldn't have had an input on any of the guitar writing. I mean, he was playing guitar, but just not in Alter Bridge.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that Blackbird felt so different to Creed, or even just to One Day Remains, is because Miles Kennedy had an input on the music as well. Whereas I think, I mean, I might be way off the mark, but I know he wasn't playing guitar on that album or on that tour. So I would assume that he wasn't involved in the writing of the music, and that he kind of joined as the album was getting written.
Yeah.
So I think that although the main big difference is you've got a different singer, so the band's going to sound different. The instrumentals are different. The first Alter Bridge album could have been a Creed album. You've got songs like, Open Your Eyes and In Loving Memory. Scott Stapp could have sung on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that Scott Stapp could have sung on Blackbird.
No.
So I think the instrumentals changed as well, which is probably like a big part of it that people don't think about.
Yeah. Like literally, like you say, like I read last night the first Alter Bridge album half of it was recycled from what should have been Creed. But then it didn't cross my mind that would have meant that Miles Kennedy had nothing to do with the writing process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm pretty sure that, again, I might be, I've watched a lot of Alter Bridge content, so it all kind of blurs, but I'm 90% sure that when they were doing the sessions for Blackbird, Miles Kennedy was in his room or whatever playing guitar, and Mark Tremonti didn't even know that he could play guitar, and just kind of walked past and was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And then then they ended up playing and getting guitar deals with PRS and the rest of it. But yeah, I think it probably, because it does change the way you writing with somebody else, having a different perspective on it. If you've got the same band as Creed, you're going to write the same music as Creed.
Yeah.
But now you've got a different singer, a different opinion on guitars, and you're maturing as a writer yourself. I mean, when they're in Creed, they were still really young, and they're now getting into the late 20s by the time they're in Alter Bridge, and they're working themselves out. And which is probably why they've had such a fucking like an upward progression. Because their first album was unbelievable, and most bands fall off after that, and they kept getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably down to just having a right creative partner and just grafting.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say as well, talking about the right creative partner. I've done a lot of these interviews now, and of all the bands that I've spoken about, this is probably the first band that has retained the same lineup as when they started. So what do you think their secret is?
Same band officially.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. No, no, we were called the Timeouts for a while, just before we got signed, and we had a different bass player. But as soon as we changed the name, we changed members, and we've been that for 4 years. But they're just gotta be mates. Like, you've got to be mates first, be friends, then bandmates. That sounds really convoluted, but it's so easy, and you see it so often in like local scenes where people will fall out over stuff that's happening in the band and forget that they didn't grow up together.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't pay for your share of the studio on time. Come on. It's like, just things happen. I think it's really, really helpful that, especially me and Frank, I say, have known each other for like 10 years, 11 years. We grew up together. We were in school together. We did our first gig together when we were 11. And we've just, this has kind of just been our thing. And I mean, we all live together.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're just a really, really tight-knit group. And it's not to say that we don't have problems, but like, the band is never a part of that problem.
Yeah.
That's our personal things are our personal things, and we keep the band as it is. And if the band's doing well, everything personal kind of eventually just sorts itself out.
Yeah. So it
doesn't matter if you've fallen out about who's done the parts, because you're going to go and play a gig tonight, and then by the end of it, you're going to be fine again.
Yeah. So it's just about keeping those things separate and always remembering where you came from.
Exactly that.
Lovely. So personally, I've seen Alter Bridge 2.5 times now. Have you ever managed to see them live?
2.5 times. The half. What's the half? I'm curious now.
Festivals. They don't quite count for me. It's a very different atmosphere.
I'll take that. That's fair. I've seen Alter Bridge once. I saw them. I only got to see them once. I saw them on the Pawns and Kings tour. I saw them at the AO Arena. I saw Miles Kennedy, a few years ago now, when he did the Ides of March tour. I think it was in Leeds, maybe.
Okay, yeah. I
actually really, really enjoyed that. I only just got into like Miles Kennedy's solo stuff, and it was a really, really good gig. And he did a few of the Slash songs acoustic. It was really cool.
Yeah, I had a very similar thing. I saw Miles Kennedy at Shepherd's Bush Empire here in London, and he did a couple of Alter Bridge songs, just him and his acoustic guitar, and I have never cried so hard in my life. There's just something so different about like taking a slow song anyway and just putting like his vocals and an acoustic guitar to it that just like hit a different spot.
He always chooses to do some really like deep cut Alter Bridge stuff at those gigs, and it's really, really cool. I think he did All Ends Well, which is just like a random track on Fortress, which was really, really cool.
Yeah. So I'm curious then, like, if you've been into Alter Bridge for X amount of years, you've actually only really seen them relatively recently on their last album cycle. How come it took you so long to go and see them?
I mean, God, 2019 is way longer ago than I thought it was. I mean, I really, Jesus. I really got into them when 2018, 19 was kind of just like casually listening to them and trying to get into them, but never really giving them the time of day.
Mm-hmm.
But lockdown was when I was really like trying to like, nail down this whole singing thing and trying to get better at understanding technique and making my voice last to the shows. And those two things kind of came together because Miles Kennedy's the king of it. And by that time it was 2019, 2020, and it was lockdown.
Right.
So
yeah.
I just missed the boat. And then they just before lockdown, they just come off their last tour for Walk the Sky. So I had to just wait till the next album, which just happened to be last year.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. I didn't realize The Last Hero and Walk the Sky were pre-lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Last Hero was 2017. I think Walk the Sky was 2019.
2016 and 2019, yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay, so I would have seen them on...
That doesn't sound like that. If I'm saying 2019, that feels like a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, technically...
Not 5 years ago, my lord.
5? No, don't say that. That's so sad. So I would have seen them on the Walk the Sky tour and Pawns and Kings. When I saw them on Walk the Sky, it was really interesting because... So I much prefer seeing them the second time because the first time
Josh went to see them on that tour and he said exactly the same thing.
Really? Okay, so I don't feel as bad now. I think what my problem was, like, they had such a massive stage and they had nothing on it. There wasn't even any leads or cables running from their guitars. They just had screens in the background and they didn't move. And it was like this massive expanse of space that was not utilized well at all. And there wasn't a lot of banter either. So I don't know if it was just like a bad tour for them. But then the second time I saw them on the Pawns and Kings one as well, totally different ball game. They absolutely brought their A game on that one, which was quite interesting.
Where did you see them on the Walk the Sky tour?
Both times was at the O2 Arena in London. Which
is crazy that they're an arena band over here because they're really not that. They don't do that size venue in America, which I think is kind of silly because I think it's a really Americanized band. But
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like I said earlier, I work in the industry full time, and it is so weird that like you can have a massive band over here, but it does not translate well in America, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like at the moment, America have not caught on to the Sleep Token hype.
No, they really haven't.
And it's mental, especially now that they're selling out arenas here in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, but it's the same with like Bad Omens. We've only really recently just caught on to the Bad Omens hype. I think it's really interesting how fundamentally it's the two music capitals of the world, the UK and Europe and America, and you would think that they're so entwined, and they're really not. It's two completely different worlds.
Absolutely.
It's just something that's really interesting. But anyway, going back to the whole Alter Bridge stage setup thing, that's kind of always been my thing with it. I mean, part of the fact has got to be that they're 50-year-old men.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, and don't get me wrong, they're doing fucking fantastic for their age. They still sound unbelievable. And they still put on a hell of a show. But I think they're really relying more now on the stage setup to be cooler, which is absolutely fine. I mean, like a big stage setup is always wicked. I saw Bring Me the other week, and the stage setup was fucking unbelievable,
insane.
But yeah, I mean, I was watching the other night. There's a live recording of Alter Bridge in Amsterdam in 2009 on the Blackbird tour, and I don't know if they're on cocaine or what, but it's like watching a different band,
right?
Like, it's just, if you get the chance to watch it, it's like unbelievable. It's like the showmanship, like the ability is still all there. They're still like as proficient as they are now. It's just mental to watch. They're like actually like moving about and going nuts and walking around the stage, and
it's a performance as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think they're still really performative. I just think part of it's got to do with it can't be easy to like jump about and do things and sing those parts.
Yeah.
And especially like they do long tours as well, man. Like, they were touring Pawns and Kings for like 7 months, 8 months. Brutal.
You're gonna get tired after that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be moving about either.
Yeah.
I might even pull a chair up.
I mean, they do on their slower songs. They get 2 stools out, and Miles and Mark just sit and.
And to be fair though, he still doesn't slouch. That was the one thing that I like took away from that gig. He was sat so straight on that stool. He was vertical. It was unbelievable. The guy is like a master of technique. I don't even know if he knows that. But he's just
yeah, maybe it's subconscious now. He's been doing it for so long, like that's just how his spine is.
It's just muscle memory now, yeah.
Literally. So when you eventually got to see them live, how was that? Did you go by yourself? Did you go with mates? What was that experience like finally seeing them?
I went with Josh. Me and Josh went, and my little brother, and it was wicked. It was really cathartic. It was really, really nice. It had gone full circle. And yeah, it was just really nice. I remember me and Josh crying at Blackbird. It was sick. It was really good fun.
It's so wholesome.
And I always think with big arena gigs that the sound gets a bit like the front of house sound gets a bit shittier the closer to the front you get.
Mm-hmm.
But the sound was probably the best live sound I've ever heard in an arena in my life. It was unbelievable. And Josh had met Mark Tremonti at some point previously, and at some point he pointed over at us, and it was cool. And we've interacted with them a few times, and it was quite nice. And then he came over and gave us a pick and stuff, and it was just dead cute. It was well nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wholesome.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. It was a cute little date.
It's a cute little date with your little brother third wheeling.
Yeah, no, exactly that.
So one of my favorite things about being a fan, especially a heavy music fan, is band merch. I am a huge slut for band merch.
Absolutely.
So before this tour that you saw them on, did you own any Alter Bridge band merch? Did you pick any up from that tour?
Yeah, I got a t-shirt, and I got 2 t-shirts, but one of them I cut into a tank top, and then I got tempted by James. James is the big guy in our band. He has massive arms, and he's an absolute fucking. He's just huge. And he was like, "Kai, I would look so much better than you in this top." So we sorted out some kind of trade. And do you know what? Credit to him, he was absolutely right. He does look unbelievable in it. But yeah, so I got 2 tops, and I think I got a beanie or a bag or something. I don't know where it's gone. I've not seen it in ages. I've moved house since then. But yeah, no, I don't think I had anything before that, because I didn't really like any of the stuff online.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so some cool t-shirts. I might wear that tonight to work, actually. Now we spoke about it.
So you said there was nothing really that took your fancy that you saw online. And I also find that buying a t-shirt from a gig is always so much more special, especially if it's got the tour dates on it. So the t-shirts that you bought from the show, what was it about those t-shirts and the design that you finally found something that you wanted from them?
I really liked the visual aspects of Pawns and Kings anyway. There was a lot of skulls and snakes and chess pieces and stuff like that, and I just thought I really liked that as a concept. One of them is like it's got the logo at the top, and it's a chess piece with a snake wrapping around it, but it's like really realistic. It's not like the album cover one that's a bit cartoony. Yeah. And then the other one is it's got the logo and like a big skull with a snake coming through it, and I just thought they were really, really cool. They had a little print, and I'm really annoyed that they didn't do it as a t-shirt over here. I'm sure they did it in America, which was like it looked like they were a deathcore band. It was like their logo was like deathcore, and there was like blood and shit. I was like, that's cool as fuck. But it's an A5 print.
Yeah. Would have been cool on the t-shirt.
Would have been a cool hoodie or a t-shirt.
Speaking of which, I love the t-shirt you're currently wearing right now, by the way.
Oh, Metal Dolly Parton.
Yeah, it's fucking sick.
Hell yeah. Oh
I love
yeah.
that.
No, hell yeah. Thank you.
It's all right. So so was it you that got the guitar pick when you saw them, or was it Josh? Did you say?
It's up for debate. It's a sore
Oh,
topic. It
right.
was. He did point at me. I did catch it, and he did convince me to give it to him. But it kind of lives. It lives on the mantle.
Right, okay. It's the band pick.
It's the band pick. If I ever find out he's using it, I'm going to be well annoyed though.
It's going to be a tough divorce when you move out of that house and you have to decide who gets it.
You're so right. I not even thought about that.
You don't have to think about it right now, though. I'm sure that's
Oh,
further down the road.
I don't know how you expect me to think of anything else now.
Every time like you walk past it, you're going to be making sure it's still there.
You're growling at him and stuff, scratching at the door.
So the thing I really like about Littlebridge is that they have been great at releasing albums with such consistency and in really good time. And as well, like being a fan of a band, it's great that you know you've always got something to look forward to, and you know it's always going to be great. So, what is something new or different you'd like to see from them on more upcoming releases?
I've heard that Mark Tremonti is looking at learning some extreme vocals for the next Tremonti album. So I'm hoping that the next Alter Bridge album is just really fucking heavy. I'm hoping it's not metalcore, but I'm hoping there's some screams in there. I mean, I want them to lean into that. They've been adding like a few more 7-string songs in there, like really, like I think it's there's a song on Pawns and Kings that's Fable of the Silent Sun, which is just stupid heavy. And I'm hoping they just lean more into that because I think of the last few albums, the really slow, heavy ones, so like The Other Side and Last Rites and Fable of the Silent Sun, they've been the ones that have really caught my attention. So I'm hoping they lean into that more like slower, heavier, that kind of realm.
Yeah.
I think they really suit it.
It's quite interesting as well that they were your gateway heavy-ish band, and then you got into heavier stuff.
And now heavier.
Yeah, so like they're kind of growing with your music tastes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. I like I say, whenever we're writing and I've forced myself not to listen to them for a couple of months, whenever I come back to them, it's really nice. I get to come back to them and go, oh, this is nice. You get to get fed up with my own voice singing on Alter Bridge songs.
It's like hearing them for the first time again.
Yeah, exactly that.
So I have 2 more questions for you. Out of their 7 studio albums, how would you rank them?
Okay, right. We'll go from the bottom to the top. Walk the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Hero.
Yep.
Pawns and Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Fortress. I know we're going backwards in release order here, but One Day Remains.
Yep.
Blackbird. Then AB3.
Okay, wonderful. Final question. If you had to direct someone listening to Alter Bridge for the first time, which 3 tracks would you suggest they start with that encapsulates them perfectly?
Ooh,
These can be the hits, or these can be some deep cuts that you think are a bit underrated.
I think that you'd have to do like a heavy one, a soft one, and a middle one. So do it properly. So I think Wonderful Life. I'd probably do Metalingus because everybody gets into Alter Bridge from that track. So probably Metalingus, Wonderful Life, and Blackbird.
Good choices. All early ones as well.
Yeah. And here I was saying I like the latest stuff.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I hope you had a good time chatting shit about Alter Bridge with me.
Oh, mate, I loved it. Thank you so much.
That's all right. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and have a good time at work later. And my new kitten, Toothless, says goodbye as well.
My God, hello.
He's been sat here the entire time.
I didn't even notice. What a little guy.
He's
Hell
been a
yeah.
good boy.
Good boy. Oh my god. I wish the cat would have been. I wish the cat would have been revealed earlier. I think it's a good job though, because I'm very ADHD, and that would have derailed the whole thing. You're absolutely right.
Thank you for listening to I'm Your Biggest Fan. If you enjoyed what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to your nan in the post. Every little helps. You can follow us everywhere at biggestfan_pod. Follow me everywhere at Wrathchild_Jazz. Noizze at Noizze UK on everything. Noizze Podcast Network at Noizze Podcast Network on everything. And Satanic Tico at Satanic Tico and at Pitch Black Nor. If you have a band member in mind that you think would be perfect for this podcast, perfect for this topic of conversation, or maybe you are the band member and you're the super fan, drop us a comment, drop us an email. All other info can be found below in the description. And thanks again for listening. We'll catch you soon.